The small, peaceful town of Berea, Ohio, got rocked to its foundation when 13-year-old Robin Fielder disappeared without a trace. Her family was frantic for any clue, and a search got going right away. But one person knew exactly where Robin had been the whole time, even though he went so far as to pitch in and look for the missing girl. What they found was way more horrible than anyone could have pictured. The killer was shockingly bold. He actually drove to the victim, his desperately searching family, with the young girl's body hidden in the back of the car on his way to dump her. It was one of the most unthinkably evil crimes the state had ever seen. 13-year-old Robin was known around the small community of Berea as a sweet kid. She loved hanging out with friends and family and was into sports like track, gymnastics, softball, and cheerleading. She was the only child from her mother's second marriage. Robin had tragically lost her dad to a heart attack just a year after she was born. Nancy Fielder was shattered by her husband's death, but her 5 other kids from her first marriage were more than willing to help raise bright and lively Robin. Even in their grief, it was a home full of love where Robin learned about helping others. She didn't make exceptions when it came to being generous, but some people were all too ready to take advantage of her selfless nature. On Tuesday, April 22, 1986, Robin left her house for Rome Middle School early that morning. Her day started out normal, but that wouldn't last long. Taking the school bus, Robin usually got home between 2:45 and 2:50 in the afternoon. But when the bus reached her stop, she wasn't on it. Her half-sister, Sharon Schultz, first noticed something was off when she got a call around 3:30 from one of Robin's classmates, 15-year-old Warren Paxton Brown. He just asked if Robin was home, and Sharon said she hadn't come back from school yet. Paxton said he'd call back later before hanging up. It was Sharon's birthday, and she had plans with her sister to go out for dinner and shopping. Since only a little time had passed since Robin should have been home, Sharon wasn't too worried yet. But that was about to change. Hours went by, and there was still no sign of the 13-year-old. Finally, Nancy was told about her daughter's strange absence and rushed home from work. She made a bunch of phone calls to friends and family, hoping somebody knew something, but it was no use. Robin was nowhere. It wasn't long before the mom got a big search party together, including not just Robin's close relatives, but also many of her friends, like Paxton and her next-door neighbor and close friend, 15-year-old Michelle Jackson. Robin's half-brother, Rick, remembers when he found out Robin was missing. The frantic hunt left the community heartbroken, as they couldn't find a single clue about where she might be. They never could have guessed just how close she really was. At 10:15 that night, Robin's family filed a missing persons report. Their awful search went on into the next day, but it ended in the worst way possible. On Wednesday, April 23rd, at 3:35 in the afternoon, a local fisherman along the South Rocky River in Strongsville came across a terrible sight. He found a young girl's body lying face down in the water, wrapped only in a green sheet. When police got there, they rushed her to Southwest General Hospital. There, Ken and Rick Schultz, Robin's half-brothers, positively identified the victim as their little sister. Though Rick was only 23 at the time, he'd taken on the role of family leader, and this grim job fell to him. Her family and friends were left totally devastated. As the investigation got rolling, police did a series of interviews that would reveal a twisted web of lies. The truth couldn't stay hidden forever. From the second the town heard the sickening news, several theories started going around. One stood out. David White, who was supposedly a friend of Robin's, told police he might have seen the young girl riding her bike with 17-year-old Frank Salinka on Prospect Street around 4 p.m. on the day Robin vanished. The two might have had feelings for each other, or so the rumor went. Some thought maybe Frank had information about Robin's murder. Not only that, but a week before the tragedy, Sharon got a phone call from Robin's concerned friend, Paxton, saying Robin should be kept away from Frank. He was afraid Frank might try to hurt her. It's unclear if Sharon passed that warning to Robin, but after her body was found, police were plenty suspicious of Frank. Paxton also told the authorities that a student at Rome Middle School was yelling awful things in the hallways, saying they were happy to hear Robin was dead. Unfortunately, he couldn't say who that sick individual was, but police quickly realized not everyone was mourning the community's loss. Suddenly, investigators had to consider another possibility when a shocking piece of information came out. Robin was a well-rounded, happy girl, or so everyone thought. Could there have been another side to Robin? One she didn't want anyone to see? Police started asking themselves those very questions when they got word from Robin's brother, Rick, He told them his little sister might have written a note talking about really bad feelings of depression. Michelle, Robin's next-door neighbor and close friend, apparently told Rick that Robin had shown her the note in person. It's not reported when this supposedly happened, but police were left wondering if there was a killer out there after all. Maybe Robin had actually done what she'd apparently talked about in her note. As the investigation continued, police would soon find out exactly why Robin never got dropped off at her usual stop that day. According to students on the same bus, the young girl was seen getting off the bus at the corner of Baldwin and Wallace, which was one stop before her own. But police were surprised to learn that when she got off, Robin wasn't alone. With her were 14-year-old Jimmy Martin and Paxton. Authorities traced Robin's last movements and went to speak with Charlene and Winfred Murphy, Paxton's aunt and grandmother, who were apparently the last people to have seen her alive. The three friends went upstairs to Paxton's room to listen to music, but the hangout was supposedly cut short just 15 minutes later. Jimmy left the house, and soon Robin did too, only she was said to be in complete hysterics as she went out the door. This was allegedly the last time Robin was seen alive. But there was a lot more to the story than authorities first thought. To their dismay, there were still a lot of puzzle pieces to put together, and little by little, a twisted and evil plan would come to light. They continued with Charlene's interview, where she said she spoke with Paxton later that night, around 8:30, and asked if he wanted to go with her to the grocery store. Paxton agreed and asked if they could stop at Michelle's house to pick up a note she supposedly had for him. Next, they drove to the store and got back home just before 9 o'clock. From there, Charlene explained that Paxton sat on the floor of her bedroom to watch some videotapes. She fell asleep around 11:30 or midnight and stated Paxton was still in the room at that time. Since Paxton was one of the last people to see Robin, investigators decided to talk to him next. The story he told didn't quite match up with his aunt's. Investigators were left wondering where the truth ended and the lies began. According to police reports, Paxton was interviewed just hours after Robin's body was found, and he gave a series of statements. He quickly said that he and Robin were more than just friends and had actually been seeing each other for about 3 months. Though, according to Robin's family, the pair wasn't necessarily dating. He said they usually rode the bus home together every day, but Robin supposedly came up with the idea to get off one stop earlier on the day she went missing, so her mom wouldn't TC them together. Apparently, Robin's family never really liked Paxton, so the two hid their relationship. From the bus stop, they walked to Paxton's house. Hearing his account, police were immediately suspicious because Paxton hadn't mentioned Jimmy yet, even though both Charlene and Winfred said Jimmy was waiting outside with the other two teenagers. Authorities were already questioning if Paxton was telling the truth. Why would he leave Jimmy out of the story? When confronted with this information, he defended himself by saying his friend did come to the house but left when his grandmother and aunt showed up. Then, for some unspecified reason, he explained that Jimmy walked back to Paxton's house around 5 o'clock p.m. Paxton went on with his story, saying that once he and Robin were in his bedroom, she told him she didn't want to continue their relationship anymore. The talk got emotional and the young girl was sobbing uncontrollably before supposedly running out of the house. Paxton claimed he waited 10 minutes before calling her home phone to see if she'd come back, but that's when Robin's sister Sharon told him Robin hadn't made it home. Paxton allegedly made several more calls trying to find Robin, but nobody had seen or heard from her. He eventually went to Michelle's place around 9:30. Together they went to Franca's house to ask if he'd seen or heard from Robin, but he told them he hadn't talked to her. Michelle and Paxton kept looking for Robin, but this is where his story stopped matching his aunt's. Remember, Charlene had claimed her nephew was watching videotapes in her bedroom that night and never left the house. On that first night Robin was gone, Rick had learned Paxton was one of the last people to see Robin before she vanished. So after their first search came up empty, Rick kept looking. Police were again faced with uncertainty when Robin's sister Sharon told them Paxton had actually stopped by her house that day, asking about their search. Charlene also told authorities she had driven him over. He went next door and spoke to Michelle after seeing Sharon. She didn't say what time this happened, but it was clear something wasn't adding up. Hoping to get more clarity, investigators talked to Jimmy on April 22nd. He said he walked to the house with Paxton and Robin. He claimed he never went back that night, even though Paxton had said otherwise. Police had a bad feeling nobody was telling the truth, and this suspicion would only grow after they learned about another possible suspect, 15-year-old Michelle. According to Nancy and Sharon, Michelle showed very little emotion about Robin's death, The mother and daughter told investigators they believed Michelle never actually liked Robin and was jealous that she and Frank had apparently developed feelings for each other. In a shocking turn, investigators found out the supposed friends had gotten into an argument the night before Robin's disappearance over a betrayal. Robin was absolutely heartbroken when she found out Michelle and Paxton had shared a secret kiss. It's unclear if this happened while Paxton and Robin were unofficially together or not. Still, Robin was furious, even writing a note to Michelle calling her a name and saying she knew what happened. But Michelle's comeback was much worse. She wrote a strongly worded letter back to Robin, and the ending immediately got her in trouble. At the bottom of her note was a disturbing drawing of a tombstone with Robin's name on it. However, Michelle explained to police that the drawing just meant the end of her and Robin's friendship, nothing more. Regardless, it made her look even more suspicious, especially since Michelle and Paxton might have been getting closer behind Robin's back. Michelle went on to say that, in her opinion, Robin was supposedly doing things that were out of character. According to Michelle, she had started drinking heavily and was apparently drunk just days before she disappeared. On Wednesday, April 23rd, just one day after Robin vanished, her mother, Nancy, got a phone call from Paxton. He said he'd found Robin's purse at his house and asked if he could bring it over. But Sharon, Nancy's daughter, volunteered to go get it herself. As she started walking down Wallace Drive, a silver car pulled up beside her. Inside were Paxton, Michelle, and another friend. The vehicle stopped, and Paxton handed Sharon the purse her sister had left behind. Skeptically, she asked him where he found it. He said his Aunt Charlene had actually been the one to discover it on his bed. But this only made Sharon more suspicious. She told Paxton that if he knew anything more about what happened to Robin, it was time to come clean. She warned him that if he failed a polygraph test from the police, he'd be in a lot of trouble. But Paxton weirdly defended himself by saying he was no stranger to the test and had taken it a shocking 3 times before. Because of Paxton's strange comment, Sharon's suspicions shifted from Michelle to Paxton. You see, although she didn't know it, the 15-year-old had a very troubled past and had been involved in some pretty disturbing stuff. Paxton was a messed up kid. He'd been routinely kicked out of school and had failed every subject on his last report card. Things were going downhill fast, but that's when generous Robin stepped in. She knew about his wild tendencies and hoped to give him some stability by offering to tutor him. Friends and family saw a quick change in Paxton's behavior, and things were finally looking up, but it wouldn't last. Paxton was known to have a violent streak. According to a close friend, Matthew Houlihan, Paxton's family had apparently grown afraid of the 15-year-old, especially his Aunt Charlene. A police report said that to avoid making her nephew angry, she would allegedly buy alcohol for Paxton and his friends, though this was never verified as true. This small group called themselves the Masters of Destruction, with Paxton as the leader. According to 14-year-old Norman Clark, who had been a member, Paxton would reportedly pick on little kids and try to act tough. This might point to signs of antisocial personality disorder, though that's only diagnosed in adults. Kids or teens who show symptoms might be diagnosed with conduct disorder. The boys even broke into Smith Elementary and Fairwood Elementary schools, and they did the same to the Berea Board of Education. To top it off, they were into arson. Paxton reportedly set a fire behind St. Mary's Catholic School, all while taking pictures of the damage. One day, while at Paxton's house, Norman was traumatized when he saw a brutal fight. He told police an argument happened between Paxton and his mother, Linda Murphy, at the home. The dispute suddenly turned violent when Paxton allegedly decided to punch his own mother in the face. Norman didn't say how it ended, though it's safe to assume Linda probably feared for her safety from then on. Also, Paxton had apparently just come back from a stay at the Galahad Rehabilitation Center in Indianapolis, Indiana, only a week before Robin's death, though it's unclear how long he was there. Rick also shared some of the disturbing things he'd heard about Paxton, though it's important to know these are just allegations with no evidence to back them up. He supposedly showed violent and unstable behaviors. Yet Robin wanted so badly to bring out the good in Paxton, and that's exactly what she did, or so she thought. Sharon left the encounter where Paxton returned Robin's purse with an uneasy feeling. She still continued on to Paxton's house, hoping to talk to Charlene since she was supposedly the one who found the purse. When she got there, Paxton's grandmother, Winfred, answered the door, and Charlene nervously came over a few seconds later. Sharon asked where the purse was found, and Paxton's aunt told her she'd located it outside the house. But Charlene quickly changed her story, saying she'd actually found the purse inside. This wasn't the only conflicting statement Charlene made during the conversation. As the women talked, Sharon decided to ask them about the last time they saw Robin. At first, they told the same story they'd told police. Then everything got twisted. Charlene changed her version of events and said Robin had never come into the house and had only been talking with Paxton outside. But then the story changed again as Charlene explained Robin was inside for just a few minutes, but then said it might have actually been 25 minutes. Sharon left with even more questions than she came with and rushed home to tell her brother Rick about the strange conversation. Days went by, and the town kept searching for answers, but the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. Eventually, police decided to re-interview 14-year-old Jimmy on May 1st. They asked him to give another statement about April 22nd, the day Robin disappeared. They believed he knew more than he was letting on, and as it turned out, they were completely right. With that, the whole case was turned upside down. Finally, the truth came out. Jimmy told the lieutenant that on Sunday, April 20th, Paxton told him he was going to kill Robin and take her life because he believed she had used him. He then asked his friend for help because he didn't think Paxton was serious. Jimmy reluctantly agreed. They went to Paxton's house where they popped into Charlene's bedroom to use the phone. Afterwards, Paxton told his aunt about the unthinkable crime he planned to commit. In response, she just laughed at her nephew. To that, Paxton said, "I'm serious." Still, Charlene refused to believe the shocking claim. She had no idea just how deranged her nephew really was. Over time, Paxton made a disturbing decision. If he couldn't have Robin, then he'd make sure no one would. Tragically, if people had looked closer, they would have seen the pure evil he was capable of. But that didn't happen until it was too late. According to friends, Robin was scared to end her romantic relationship with the 15-year-old, fearing he might hit her. Unfortunately, he would do much more than that. With Jimmy's detailed confession, the truth of what happened on Tuesday, April 22nd, was revealed, and it was far more horrific than anyone imagined. Jimmy told police that Paxton and Robin sat together at the back of the bus while he was just one seat in front of them. He revealed that Paxton told Robin he wanted her to listen to a tape at his house, and she agreed. Next, he leaned over to Jimmy and asked, "Should we care?" But Jimmy claimed he didn't understand what Paxton meant. Paxton then said, "Should we or her?" Disturbingly. Jimmy told investigators Robin was able to hear part of the conversation and ask what they were talking about. Paxton told her it was a way for them to rate girls, though this couldn't have been further from the horrible truth. When the trio got to Paxton's home, he took Jimmy into the bathroom and told him to turn the radio's volume up because he was about to carry out the vicious crime. They walked back to the bedroom, and Jimmy did as he was told while Paxton went to sit on the bed next to Robin. From there, he asked her to get back together with him and go steady, since the pair had actually broken up 2 weeks before, despite the lies Paxton had told police. But Robin said no. As she tried to leave the room, Paxton stood in her way, refusing to let her go. She started to cry and tried to get away once more. When she couldn't, Robin hit Paxton on the side of his head. She screamed and yelled while he dragged her back to the bed, where he spit in her face. Paxton overpowered Robin and forced her to the ground with one hand over her throat and the other on her mouth. He asked Jimmy for help. Terrified, Jimmy said he didn't want any part of the brutal attack. Though Robin fought for her life, Paxton forced her onto her back, put both hands around her neck, and hit her head into the ground, knocking her completely unconscious. After a few minutes, Paxton let go, but Robin was still alive. At a loss for words, Jimmy told his friend he was going to leave, but before he could, Paxton threatened him if he told anyone what he'd seen. It seems Paxton was able to manipulate almost everyone around him, including Jimmy. However, Paxton gave him one last task and demanded he bring Charlene into the bedroom. Jimmy followed through with the order and made his way out the door. When we spoke to Rick, he shared another version of his sister's horrifying last moments. He was never charged with anything to do with the murder, and he would later testify against Paxton at trial. Since this was the end of Jimmy's story, authorities brought Charlene in next for questioning, as they believed she was hiding a mountain of secrets. Within minutes, she decided to confess to the brutal truth and didn't leave out a single detail. The detectives had her continue the story after Jimmy came racing down the stairs. She told investigators she went to Paxton's room. When she walked in, she was shocked to find Paxton sitting next to Robin's body on the floor. Charlene noticed her skin was blue. She wasn't wearing any clothes from the waist down, and she didn't have a shirt on. Charlene was overcome with shock and could barely get the words out to ask what happened. Charlene told police Paxton claimed he was just, quote, finishing it. Before Charlene could say anything else, Paxton stated he needed to meet Jimmy and quickly took off to the streets of Woodmere and Wallace. Charlene continued her account and said she was horrified when Paxton left her with Robin's body. Next, Charlene told investigators that Paxton's mother, Linda, got home around 4:30, which the teenager wasn't expecting. Charlene didn't tell her about the heinous crime that happened right upstairs, let alone call the police because she was afraid of how Paxton would react. Instead, she kept quiet. A few minutes after his mom arrived, Paxton told his family he'd be in his bedroom for the next couple of hours and sternly demanded nobody talk to him during that time. Linda left the house and Paxton saw a chance to speak with Charlene without his mother overhearing. Paxton asked her to come upstairs, where she found Robin completely naked on the bedroom floor. The two were unsure what to do, but Paxton decided to put Robin's clothes in a plastic bag before Charlene took a green bedsheet from a closet and handed it to her nephew. From there, Paxton wrapped the body, and then he and his aunt carried her downstairs and placed her in the back of Charlene's station wagon. They drove to Michelle's house, where Paxton walked next door to Robin's home and asked about their search for the young girl. Hauntingly, he knew exactly where Robin had been all along. As Sharon spoke with Paxton, she could never have imagined her baby sister's lifeless body was lying in that car. Paxton talked with Michelle for a couple of minutes before he and his aunt drove to a Metro Park bridge overlooking the Rocky River. This was where they would horrifically dispose of Robin's body as if she were nothing but a piece of trash. Next, they drove to a garbage bin behind a store called Pick and Pay, where Paxton threw away Robin's clothes before returning home around 9 o'clock p.m. For days, Paxton, Charlene, and Jimmy would lie to family, friends, and police about Robin's murder, but the unthinkable truth would eventually come out. However, nobody could have predicted just how depraved that 15-year-old boy would turn out to be, all because of his twisted idea that Robin's life only had value if she was with him. On May 1, 1986, both Paxton and his aunt were placed under arrest. Months later, Paxton finally told his own version of the story, and despite Jimmy and Charlene's confessions, Paxton once again tried to save his own skin. On August 27, 1986, while being held at a juvenile detention home, the killer wrote a disturbing letter detailing the horrific murder. Although most of his statements conflicted with Jimmy and Charlene's, and it seemed he was trying to put the blame for Robin's death on someone else, he wrote, "Started a strangler. I said stop it, and he did. Then he said do what you want, I got to go. He left, she was choking, it was too late to back out of it, she couldn't go home." Paxton claimed that someone walked in the room and apparently tried her best to strangle her. Eventually, Robin died. He said, "If anything was to go down, he would run away, not tell, so I ain't going to be the only one kissing bars for the rest of my life." Finally, he stated, "This will probably make matters worse for me, but going to burn with me." Paxton was eventually tried as an adult and convicted of aggravated murder. He was sentenced to life in prison, but was eligible for parole after 20 years. Charlene, who helped get rid of Robin's body, pleaded guilty to tampering with evidence and was placed on probation. 37 years have passed since the horrific murder of Robin Fielder, but Paxton claims to have turned over a new leaf. However, he has been denied parole over the last several years. Robin's family members have played a big part in making sure he stays in prison, but this hasn't stopped Paxton from asking for his own release. On his website, he admits to his actions, stating, "I committed this crime. I take complete responsibility for it, and I know that there's nothing I can do that will bring Robin back." He asks people to sign his petition so he can get a second chance. But the victim's family has been quick to publicly reject the killer as pleas by creating their own petition against his release. So far, they have been successful in keeping Robin's murderer behind bars and plan to keep it that way for years to come. We reached out to Paxton to give him a chance to comment on the case, but he declined, saying he was worried the parole board would probably disapprove of the communication. His response reads as follows: "I appreciate the opportunity to share, but I have to discuss any further participation with Dr. K. Ball, a close family friend. The parole board views any attempt for me to explain my achievements, remorse, or the terrible decision I made as a 15-year-old boy with the public as self-aggrandizement. They actually warned me against it and told me to take down the offensive website and petition for my release in 2015. I also hired a media company to make a 19-minute YouTube apology update video. It was done very professionally, and it was also taken offensively. I do not want to upset the victim or other parties connected to this tragedy any further, so I will proceed with my decision to participate through that lens.